Hi everyone, my name is Erin Elizabeth Wamberg. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. Welcome back if you've been here before, and welcome if you are new here. Today we're talking about the law of divine compensation. So this is one of the universal laws. There's many, but this is one of them. And so this law basically talks about how some of the limits we have as humans is we can get stuck in this very clear um, rigid back and forth, like this happened, so this happened, so this happened, so this happened, right? And so when we think of compensation, most of us think of financial compensation, of money, of that type of thing, or, I put in all my energy into X, and so hoping X would be the thing that comes back to me, or, all this. We have a very linear back and forth mindset. We think like, again, like this for that, back and forth, blah blah blah, right? A lot of like, I'm putting in this so I should get this back. And God and universal intelligence does not work that way. As much as we would like to think that, we are actually limited with our human mind. We don't have as much creativity or creative possibilities, or just like essentially divine things that can happen as like our creator, as higher power, as God, whatever your name is for it does. So the law of divine compensation talks about how God keeps perfect books. Our higher power keeps perfect books, like keeps perfect track of everything we do, knows the intentions that's in our heart, and always, like, we are divinely compensated for what we do, and the way we take accountability for ourselves, take responsibility for ourselves, and the way we show up in the world. And the other thing also about this, it's not just back and forth, and it's also not immediate. So a lot of times we think, okay, well, I'm putting this money or this time or this energy or this whatever into this thing, so I should get compensated right away for it. Most of us, this is basically, well, understanding law of divine compensation is about unlearning a lot of the capitalistic, consumer-based ideas we've all been socialized into about this is how, making money works. Like, okay, if I put this time in, I'm going to get this, right? So we want to unlearn that. And so law of divine compensation is about basically God keeps perfect books. God always knows, he's aware of everything we're doing. God is aware of the universe, okay, whatever language you use, is aware of everything that goes on. And so it could be that, you hear these stories about people who show up for their craft all the time, all the time, all the time, and then they finally get success or these types of things, or feel that they've had the thing they've been working for given to them after X amount of time, right? So it might not be immediate. And so law of divine compensation also works very nicely with divine timing, which divine timing is, we know that things don't happen until the exact right moment they're meant to. And so because of that, we think with our human minds, we always think we know what's best. And this is like what we can see just from our little fraction of what we know about. But with law of divine compensation and then divine timing in there too, it's like we don't have the big picture the way that creator has the big picture. We don't have all the understanding in the way that things are unfolding, and with all these things that have to work out to be like a perfect culmination of everything working so that we can get to this place we want to get to, and have this just have everything work out perfectly. Is like we only have one tiny little role in it, but we always think it should be on my terms, my time, this way, this person, this job, this thing, this, that. And so with law of divine compensation, it's really important to think about, it's like thy will, not my will, the universe, God, higher power, spirit, that will, not our own individual human will. And so with law of divine compensation, it can be relieving and helpful to think about, because it reminds us that as long as your intentions are pure, as long as you're not like, doing something to get some worldly gain, or, manipulating someone, or you have bad intentions, or like your heart isn't pure in what you're doing, as long as your intentions are pure, you're doing your best. You don't have to be perfect, right? You are trying to take responsibility for yourself. You are trying to show up in a way that can be helpful, most helpful to the world, and to be of service, and with the gifts that have been given to you. As long as you're doing that, what you put out will be returned to you, even if it's not in the form you expect, in the timing you expect, and the specific thing you've been working towards, right? So law of divine compensation is basically opening yourself up energetically to accept the gifts that spirit, source, God wants to give to us, but we just feel like we're not able to, like we can't come up with on our own, or we can't make possible on our own, or we can't, be like, okay, I want this exact thing with this. It's like we're so limited in our human minds that we think, well, it should exactly be, you know, this thing for that, or this for that, or back and forth. Like, again, this very linear mindset with it. But with law of divine compensation, we're open to the idea that, okay, there actually might be, you know, a way this is unfolding, or something that happens for me later in my life than what I want right now, because our soul has to go through evolution. Our soul has to go through these things so that we can be prepared to be a better match for the thing we're waiting for. So law of divine compensation can also be relieving in the terms of like, what you do isn't in vain. Again, as long as you're showing up, doing the best you can, praying for guidance about what to do, being the most full accountable version of yourself you can be, as long as you're doing that, again, God keeps perfect books. So that is not for nothing. That's not in vain. That's not with any of this. You know, this can just be, again, relief that as long as you are showing up with pure intentions, with doing the best you can, it's like, you're not being punished because you aren't getting the exact thing that you thought you wanted in this situation, or I put all this effort into like this one relationship or this one job or this one whatever. Whenever God blocks something or pushes us out of something, it's always because it's not the right match for us. And, you know, it can be a really hard thing for the ego to hear, because the ego is like, I'm right, this is what I want, this is what I decided, this is what's happening. But so often, you know, how many times you think about in your own life, you thought you wanted one thing and then you get information later, or you get something that's a better match for you, and you're like, wow, thank God that thing didn't work out in that way. And so law of divine compensation plays into that, because it again reminds us of the ways that, you know, as long, again, as we are showing up with personal responsibility, trying our best, wanting to be the best we can be, staying open to the things that come our way, it's like we will be rewarded, just for having a clean conscience and doing things with like a pure heart. And now, one thing I want to say about law of divine compensation that is not, it sometimes can be misconstrued into this, but law of divine compensation is not the idea that, you know, you should have no limits, have no boundaries, be a martyr, be like, oh, I'm doing this to get stuff from me, right? As soon as you make yourself sacrificial, or be like, I'm doing this so that I can have this specific outcome, or like, oh, well, if I sacrifice myself enough, God will see me sacrificing myself, and then, you know, I'll have this particular thing. Okay, law of divine compensation is not about being a martyr. It's not about having no boundaries. It's not about letting people walk all over you. Okay, you have to be in your power, and you have to be personally responsible. And so this is not advice to just, you know, be like, again, martyrdom of like, oh, I'm just being a spiritual martyr, right? Like, oh, I'll just take on everything. I'll have no limits. I'll take care of everything for everyone, because that means I'll be rewarded for what I'm doing, because I'm so, you know, like I'm holier than thou, I'm doing all this stuff. It's not how law of divine compensation works, okay? That idea, law of divine compensation doesn't work with that idea, because with that idea, it's like you're giving your personal power away. You know, God works with us and can do miracles for us and can help us like do so many things that we can't do for ourselves, but not when we're in a disempowered state, not when we're trying to be like, oh, have pity on me, look at me, look what's going on, like, you know, like none of that works when God knows your intentions, and God knows if you're doing something just to get something as a result, right? So, you know, it's like, oh, well, if I just let this particular person treat me however they want and do whatever they want and not stand up for myself, then God's going to reward me, because he's seeing that I'm going to put up with anything. And then, you know, it's fine. Like, it's look, this is what's happening. And that's a law of divine compensation. That's not what it is. Okay. Law of divine compensation is, you know, maybe you have an artistic endeavor you're working on, and God sees that you're doing your part to, you know, contact a magazine to review it, or if you're a musician, a radio station, or if you write a book, to put it in a bookstore. Maybe you're getting a lot of no's from places, right? And you're like, okay, well, what's going on? But then someone reaches out to you and they're like, oh, I heard about your book, your music, your whatever, and I would love if you played this festival, for example. So it just means that your energy and effort will be returned to you, but you have to do your part, and you have to own who you are and be responsible in that way. And when we think about like relationship stuff, right? This can be platonic or romantic, but you know, it's not, you're not going to be rewarded for, you know, suffering the most or sacrificing yourself the most or anything like that. You are going to be rewarded for saying like, this is my limit, these are the desires I have in my heart, and I know they can be honored, because like God puts the desires in our hearts for us. And so this is about saying, okay, you know, if this is, am I okay being treated like this? Yes, no, okay. If you stand up for yourself, if you have these things, you have to have faith that what is being brought to you is going to be a better match for you than this thing you're like ramming up against. Again, just remember, if something is being blocked from you, or you're being pushed out from it, or it's just like not working, like chronically not working after all the energy you're putting, this can be, a clue to just kind of let things go, surrender, and then be open to, the ways that God sees that you are working on yourself, you are showing up for yourself, you are doing these types of things. So with the law of divine compensation, just to wrap it up, the important thing is stay in your integrity, right? So really acting from a pure place, making sure that your actions match your belief systems, like you're just being morally pure, and just not trying to manipulate people or a situation or an outcome or anything like that. You really are just trying to let things flow and let things happen. Having faith, of course, like always. So just knowing that, okay, even if I put all this energy into this particular thing, if that doesn't work out, then I know, again, God is keeping perfect books on me and my situation. And then the last thing is staying open, right? So a lot of times, we put all this energy into this particular thing and we think, okay, that's the thing that's going to come back for me and I'll be rewarded for that thing. But again, maybe something is being brought to us and we will be divinely compensated in a way that we didn't even realize. And last thing I will say about this too is it doesn't even have to be something material, right? Sometimes the best divine compensation is like knowing we can sleep well at night because we did stay in our integrity. We did try to make amends for when we messed up. We did try to, be the best person we could be. And so a lot of times the reward is that we just have a clean conscience, and like that's a way we are divinely compensated too. So not just about material things, and physical reality things, but just about knowing, being proud of yourself that you put in the work, you put in the effort, you showed up for yourself, you stayed in your integrity, you said yes when it felt good to say yes, you said no when it felt good to say no. So just remembering that, again, sometimes divine compensation can just be the peace that you get from following your own heart. Okay, that's everything I have for you. Thank you so much for choosing to be here with me today. If you ever want any more information all about me, all of that is linked below. Thank you so much, and I hope you have a wonderful day.